again.
Yo, good day and welcome to another episode of Road FS Detail Memoirs. It is always a juggle and a circus behind the scenes, but we're super excited to be here. I'm Jody.
I'm Rod, and today we have an awesome guest, Mike Phillips from 3D Products. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing super, guys.
You know, it's interesting. I was thinking about leading up to the conversation this week, and if we did a documentary series on everything that you've experienced, what you've seen, what you've done
gosh.
in the detailing industry as a whole, I mean, it would take up volumes. and we get 30 minutes with you.
It'd take a lot. It seems like it seems like I've just been doing this all my life because I have been doing this all my life.
and we're not even going to talk about how old you are. I mean, because you look amazing.
Yeah, I'll be 62 in February. So
Wow.
That is crazy, man. You look amazing.
So you've gone through many different transitions and different parts of what this is doing. And I mean, I think part of the really cool part about having somebody that's been around as long as you have in the industry is you get to have seen all these ebbs and flows over time. Yeah. And not just in the industry. I'm not talking about business, but talking about the innovations and the product advancements and the time savings and some of them that flopped, you know.
Yeah.
So
he laughed.
I mean, it's funny because I haven't posted this picture yet, but I was in my shop this weekend and I reached into the bottom drawer, you know, the bottom drawer of your toolbox where parts go to die. And I opened it up and there's this old, really old Black & Decker rotary. Right. And you know, the one that's like maximum 7,200 RPMs, do not polish on high speed, big warning on it. Right. And I thought literally, I was like, wow, that's how long I've had a polisher since that was like the thing, you know? So
how old is that one?
Oh my gosh, that has to be, I'm going to say 80s, early 80s.
So you're 30 years.
I mean, it's 30 years old, maybe.
Is that the 2-speed? Has a switch on the top, goes back and forth?
Yeah. No. This is on the side and it's a single on off. It's just on and you're going, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one of those things that we talk about with the innovations is just the fact that that's how it used to be done, you know? And this is back when you took a wool pad and you tied it on because it had a string, right? It did.
Yeah.
So what would you say over the last several years is the biggest innovation? Is it tools or is it products? Is it training? What do you think?
The internet. You know, when I started, we didn't have the internet, and so everything that you learned was from those around you or a printed book. I remember getting information from the guys behind the auto parts counter. Okay, my dad. If you were lucky, someone that was a painter, because in the early days there wasn't really detailing isn't what it is today. But body shops were always doing buffing. So that's an extension of detailing. It's an aspect, you know, and you have to buff out the car. But yeah, so printed books, your dad, the auto parts stores, the guys behind the counter, because, you know, they're kind of closer to the compounds and waxes since they're there every day. And a lot of times, you know, my background at McGuire's, I was a sales rep and a trainer. I would call on body shops, dealerships, and automotive parts stores. And so part of my job was to train them how to sell the product. So assuming, you know, some companies, maybe not all, but maybe some companies had somebody like that called on auto parts stores, PVE and hard parts, and shared information about new products. If you were just a consumer to walk in, you could go in and say, hey, my car is oxidized. What do I need? Hopefully you get a guy that actually cared to go walk you over and say, you need this, followed by this, and then put this on. So, but that's where you get your information. And I still have all of the how-to books I purchased as a kid growing up, trying to learn the craft of detailing. And one of the things that drove me to write my own book was, I can't really say I ever learned anything from the books that were out there. They're just, the information at the time I even bought it was dated and really just not very helpful. Kind of frustrating.
Yeah, well, and that's what's interesting because I came into it from the auto parts and from restoring cars, and I didn't know anything about it. And we'd get back these freshly painted cars, and literally was just thrust into it. I had a boss that was like, hey, this car's got a bunch of junk in it. You need to cut and buff it. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And so he gave this Black & Decker rotary and a wool pad. And he was like, I mean, I think I had maybe 15 minutes of training, and it was a fresh painted car. He's like, sand it down till it's white and looks milky, and then turn this on its side and push hard and go. And it was just, okay, so trial and error, literally. Burn. Oh, well, I burned through that drip rail. Don't get up there, that kind of stuff. So I think I appreciate the answer of the internet, because I don't think people stop and look at how much information we have coming at us today. I mean, you do thousands of trainings. I mean, I was thinking about it with Jody this morning. I was like, how many trainings do you think Mike Phillips has put people through? And I would say thousands of people that you have literally put through your trainings. And I saw some of the pictures of the training center and all the equipment and all the polishers that you've got out there and everything. I'm like, it's just amazing how it's come from, my experience of 15 minutes with a guy that literally didn't know what he was doing and told me how to do it, to where you can go spend some time with you and really learn the craft well, to know what to look for, and know the difference between the materials and the surfaces, and have products that actually work now. Right. I mean, you've got, so I asked you this question years ago. You and I first met. Rennie Doyle introduced us, and I'm going to say it was 2008. You were in a booth, and I think you guys had like I want to say like a 65 Mustang trunk is what you used to have as a detailing demo in your booth, right? As a black trunk. And you were at that time, I think 3-inch sanding pads, and you were showing the advantage of machine polishing, right? And so you and I were just talking while we were sanding on this hood, and we talked about the surfaces. Early 2000s to today, have you seen a degradation in the quality of the paints coming out? Or are they about the same?
Everything's always in a state of change. Look at the phone you bought last year. There's something new out tomorrow. Computers, everything's in a state of change, and paint technology is like that too. Paint technology has forces pushing against it, like environmental forces, making paints that are cleaner, create less pollution to make them, create less pollution to apply them. I would always hope that manufacturers would be talking to their suppliers and looking for things like, hey, can the average guy work on this? That to me, that'd be the first criteria versus, how hard can we make this, or how cheap can we get this? But I'm sad to say, I don't think they ever take in the consumer aspect when manufacturing a paint, but change is what it is. We have to change to it. That's just how it's going to always be. I remember some years ago, I think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the manufacturers, it might have been Infinity, but they introduced a self-healing paint. Might have been Nissan, and that went nowhere back then. That would be back sometime in the mid 2000s, and everybody, all the detailers were so worried. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be out of a job. And I just thought, no, there's millions of cars out there with the old paint system. Will always have something to do. But as these paint technologies come out, it's one of the things that you just have to change to work with it, and the manufacturers have to change to work with it also. And that would include pads and tools also.
Yep. One of the things that I think's interesting about your comment about the internet, right, is we tend to think about impact on business in the tools at our hand, the polisher, the products. So when you look at the internet as a tool, I think a lot of people go to YouTube University and get their first cuts on detailing or business or whatever. So where do you think the internet has the greatest value for a business owner? Is it the training? Is it the opportunity to market? Where do you see it really helping a business owner?
I think I think it'd primarily be marketing. If a business is trying to grow, I mean, I met detailers that have capped out. They don't need any more customers. They're fine. so marketing for them is something that they already did that. But if you're an individual or a business trying to grow, definitely you've got to be on all the different social media platforms, and for the most part, it comes down to either text education or before and after pictures, showing what you can do, what your company provides for the consumer, potential customer.
Yeah. And I think it's making us connected. I mean, if I had to say it, I was like, for instance, you were overseas, you were doing trainings, and people are actually able to see that. And we're able now to see what's happening thousands of miles away. I mean, I can live vicariously through, Dane Hannon being overseas right now and looking at all the pictures and seeing all the stuff that he does. And I think that's a very valuable piece that I try to recognize that, but I think it gets pushed behind is it's made the world smaller, but in a good way. I don't have to be afraid of going to Waxstock or Auto Mechanica or somewhere else where I can actually see, what's that all about? Well, I don't have to wait for 30 days to see somebody's pictures. I can just see it live and go, yeah, that looks like a good event. We should go next year. And I think that is just like what we're doing right now, right? This is a great use of the internet where we can have you on and talk about innovations and talk about what's coming up, and people get to feel like they're part of that real time, as opposed to seeing it in the past or the not so distant past. So I think that's the great part about it is I can watch something live. You can do a live training. I mean, the good parts of 2020 in the last couple of years is that we've seen that we can do stuff virtually, where you can get training from somebody, you can mentor with somebody, have a call with them, and they can actually see what you're doing. So yeah, do you see now in your role at 3D where you guys are doing more online stuff, or are you still doing a lot? I mean, I know you're still doing hands-on, but are you doing any online stuff, or is it just all hands-on?
Well, that's something that's in the works behind the stage. Here's how I think about it. The best training is always in-person, hands-on.
Absolutely.
I had a guy text me, asked me if I was coming to New Jersey sometime in the future. I said, it's not on my schedule. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. But the thing is when you mentioned you saw the new 3D studio in Stewart, how many tools I have there. See, that's the thing is I have all the tools in this place. It's easier for him to travel to me than it is for me to pack it all up and take it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. And I have the ability to bring in a super wide variety of cars and boats for my training classes. I was just looking on my phone before we got online and counting how many cars I'm going to have, not this weekend, but next weekend. I have a 3-day class. I have 11 cars, possibly I have 12 cars coming in 2 boats. And although I'm really good about getting other cars for offsite locations, nothing beats my hometown because I have such a good relationship with all the
yeah.
So the best hands training is in person, and I can't even count how many times when I've worked with somebody, even over just now at Auto Mechanica, where I put my hands on their hands and hold the tool at the right angle or the right speed, and move it, the arm speed, versus if they were to watch me doing that on a video live or recorded, they could probably come close, but there's nothing like that hands-on approach to just flatten out the learning curve, and fix any mistakes right then and there, or, pat on the back. Hey, you got this. So
yeah, I think that's an important point, because Scott's comment down below made me think about my experience with Scott at Air Force One. He and I were inside of an engine cowl doing the bright work, right? And I'm right-handed, and I was polishing, and he goes, dude, well, you look like you're fighting the polisher. Why don't you switch hands? And I'm like, what? This is the way I've always done. He goes, no, switch hands. And dude, I switched hands, and all of a sudden my movement across the metal was so much more efficient, and I felt like I had control. And I would not have had that experience if it wouldn't have been having Scott right next to me going, why are you struggling with that polisher? You look like you're fighting it instead of letting the polisher do the work. And a little change made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And he actually asked you a question. He said, do you feel like today's social media has become the new age car mag? And do you think there is a way to sift through false information? Fact checking.
Yeah, no, with the, if you're good with Skynet, did I say Skynet? I meant Google.
Yeah.
If you're good with Skynet, I mean, you can find accurate information. You know, you have to be able to understand if it really is accurate versus what's out there. But
Right.
you know, that some of that is just. But yeah, no, the internet can help you. The problem I have with all the fact checking is whose facts are correct. So,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's part of the problem. I do think that the internet has become your car magazine. It's easier to see stuff. It's easier to look at stuff, find articles and stuff. There's certainly somebody my age. There's something about that tactile, having that in your hand stuff. I do, and I'm glad you answered the question the way you did about the in-person training. I think there is nothing that can top being in person. My personal experience with the training is that I had a tendency to, when I first started using a forced rotation, to not push hard enough, which sounds weird, but I was literally just, somebody had said, hey, let the machine do the work. Right. And so I just, because I wasn't on edge, because it wasn't on a rotary, I was like, well, I don't have to push. It could just can go. And I literally had a guy just reach his hand over the top of my shoulder and just put his finger on top of the collar and just push down, and literally told me, so just watch the pad when it compresses a little bit. That's you just watch your pressure on that. That's all it took. And so I think that is we have a real advantage, and I totally understand that. I totally realize that Jody and I have an advantage. We get to go to all these trainings. We get to go see things from Rennie Doyle. We get to be with Jason Rose at the Rupes Training Center. I get to have Sarah from Rupes, Dylan, and we've seen you in person. And it's like, we get the advantage of seeing all these people but for the person that doesn't get to do that, you really do need to go on site. You need to take advantage of these training centers that have been set up. I haven't been to your new one, but it looks unbelievable. And so you need to take advantage of these, because it is kind of, for some people, a once in a lifetime opportunity to get your hands in there and get dirty and have somebody help you,
So go ahead.
I was gonna say, at some point I'm gonna retire, so the classes I teach are gonna go away.
Yeah.
And I transitioned off of sitting in chairs and PowerPoints years ago. It was an evolution that just took place naturally. What it really was I kept getting asked to show more and more tools, more and more products, more and more techniques. And I have a PowerPoint that is 256 slides long.
Wow.
For a 3-day course. So you could say, well, that's like 80 or 90 slides a day. And I would teach that. And by the time we got through the 80 or 90 slides for the first day, say Friday, it's lunchtime. Now people are going to get sleepy. And I just like, instead of showing them a picture of a tool or a product or listing the benefits and how things work on the wall, let's just go to the car and I'll put the tool in their hands, put the products in their hands, and show them how to use it.
Yeah.
And once I started doing that, if I use a PowerPoint, it's basically to have like an introductory screen, share a little bit of information about the company's background and history, mission statement. I mean, after that, it's all hands on. And the other thing is I quit using hoods years ago. It's so easy to learn how to do something on a flat space at waist level high in the middle of a hood. Now, you have to work on a real car, especially when it comes to sanding or doing any kind of aggressive work like rotary work with the wool pad. All of a sudden, you start introducing raised body lines, edges, emblems, air filter or fresh air intakes, like on classic muscle cars by the wipers, door handles, side mirrors, antennas, fin channels, curved channels. It starts to have what I call impact. It has real impact, and that's why. I always encourage people to take any class they can, but if it works for them, come to one of my classes, because I bring in such a wide variety of cars, single stage paint, brand new cars, old cars, vinyl tops, cloth tops, glass polishing is the newest thing I've been teaching, sanding glass, buffing out glass. And to be honest, I just don't think you find all these topics in one location in one weekend, at least at this point. And so to me, I really like the classes I teach. They're all hands on. I do say that there are no chairs. There's just no chairs. And if I bring in chairs and you sit down, now we're not going to be working on cars. So I got rid of the chairs. I got rid of the PowerPoint, and I bring in real cars. And I think everybody really likes that kind of experience.
I think that hands-on experience really, there's something about having your hands on something that ingrains it in your mind, in your muscles, your hand, all that. It's so critical. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, especially from a new guy coming in, a lot of times they're looking at, do I get a rotary? Do I get a DA? All these different options. Where does somebody new make the decision? What in your opinion, what would they do first to get started?
I was asked this question over to Automechanica, and the whole time I was there, I was sanding, cutting, and buffing. So sanding by machine, using a rotary with the wool pad, then polishing with the DA with foam pads. The entire time from the morning till night. I visited other booths and did the same thing there. And I kept hearing the same comment about how hard I was pushing on the buffer for foam pad and orbitals, and how I was going up on edge with the rotary. And it just seemed to catch everybody by surprise. And but one of the things that stood out was someone asked me, if a new guy starting out, what should he do? And I says, well, the first thing is go to as many different instructors and training as you can, and then take what works for you from each person. Because I don't think myself or anybody can be the be all in the industry. Everybody finds their own way. We have our own personality. We're going to have our own style. My style is I want to go as fast as I can, keep my quality high. And, I've never understood why some guys spend 3 days in a car, but that's their style. I knock everything out in a day, or I don't take the job. But for me, I would say that one of the best tools a person could start out with would be a simple Porter cable. Okay, it doesn't cost a lot. It's millions of cars have been buffed out with the Porter cable. It makes a great DA sander. It's 8 millimeters, so it works good with any kind of sanding disc, whether you're dry sanding or machine sanding. You can put a brush on there and clean non-skid. You can clean carpet. You can clean vinyl roofs, vinyl seats. Of course, you can put all the different types of microfiber pads on for extra cutting, and foam pads for whatever project you want to work on. And I've never really been a big fan of the long strokes, just because of their inherent pad stalling problem. And the bigger the pad, the bigger the stroke, the bigger the problem. And with a short stroke Porter cable, like an 8 millimeter, you have less pad stalling, because what happens is the bigger the stroke and the bigger the pad, is the outer edge of the pad has leverage over the reciprocating component that drives the pad. And that's where you see the pad stalling. So the opposite is true. The smaller the stroke and the smaller the pad, the less the outside of the pad has leverage over the reciprocating component. That's why it's easier to maintain pad rotation with something like a Porter cable than it is a 15 or a 12 or 21. And now they got 25 millimeters. I mean, those are all great for big flat panels like motorhomes, but that is at the real world. The real world is cars with curves and cave and convex curves. So, just to break into the business, you can never go wrong with a good 8 millimeter. If you're in Europe, maybe get the DOS 6. There's a lot of options in the market. The Harbor Freight, $40, you're a detailer. And then from there, gosh, if you can go to a good class, or if you can find a way to try other tools, and see what you like before you buy them. Because as you guys know, some of these tools start in the 300s and 400s and 500s, and you're $600 in, maybe even higher. Plus, you got to buy pads, backing plates, and chemicals. So you better make sure you really like that tool before you purchase it, because a lot of times after you purchase it, you're stuck with it.
Yeah, and it's I think it's one of those things where there's a learning curve to it. I have your typical PX80E, the Flex, like small 3-inch, and when I first got that DA, I was using it was on the dash of my 57 pickup, very curved surface, 57 Chevy pickup, single stage paint. So, the whole shop's red. And I didn't like it. I hated it. I was like, this is horrible. I hate this thing, because I kept stalling it out. I'd hit an edge and it'd stall. I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. But it was that learning curve. By the time I was finished with that part, I really loved it because of the size of it. And I could really get in curves. There's a part where the gauge cluster is, and it's maybe about 1.5 inches, and I could get upside down. I was like, this is great. I mean, so I went 180 degrees with that tool just by learning it. And I think that's perfect advice, is get your hands on it. Go to the shows, go to the ones, you know, one of the greatest parts about the Southern Detailers Conference is all the hands-on stuff and the small groups. You know, I know that when you were doing your demos in 2008, 2009, there'd be a line of 30 people long to come talk to you and get a tool in their hands. And I'm like, you go to these other shows and some of these now that have a smaller thing, like 10 people. And that's really when you can get the optimal time with someone. You know, I mean, yeah, it'd be great if it was a one-on-one and I could spend a weekend with you and I could really learn how to do it. That's not realistic. But if you can get in with 8, 10 people and there's a smaller group of people, you can get your hands on a tool, you can get the instruction you need, and you can ask the questions. I think far too many times people go to a training and they're like, okay, you tell me what I need to know. And I get something out of every single class I've ever gone to this entire time. I don't care if it's something that the rag company's putting on. Like I said, I started out restoring cars back in the 80s, and I went to Jason Kilmer's sanding course. And I've talked to you about some sanding stuff too. And I had never machine sanded. I'd always been hand sand my whole life. And I, 15 minutes talking to you with 3.5, I was like, I was sold. I'm like, why am I killing myself? This is ridiculous. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting your hands on it and then asking the questions. Don't be afraid to ask. Hey, Mike, I don't know how to do this. I'm really concerned with high spots. What do I do? And you'd be like, well, stay away from them, So
yeah, don't sand on them. I have a couple of sayings. One of them goes like this is, if you spend enough time with any tool, you can make it dance on paint. So, I mean, it's just a matter of spending the time. I've over the years, I've seen too many people buy a tool. They go in the garage and try it. They can't get it to work the way they expected it to work from what they saw on YouTube or whatever. So they want to return it. But, what they didn't do is buff out 20 cars first and really, and, maybe try different paths, different speed settings, different products. Some products don't machine buff as good as others. They're not slivery. So it causes the pad to drag. So, a lot of times the things that they're seeing could be something that is not the tool's fault. It's another factor. And the other thing I always tell people when it comes to sanding, and I had to explain this a whole bunch of times at Auto Mechanica. And also I taught a class in Germany on Monday and we covered sanding, but sanding takes off paint, compounding takes off paint, polishing takes off a little paint. So, most sanding should be done on custom paint jobs, not factory finishes. And I get it. Someone buys a new car and it's got orange peel and they don't like it and they want it to go away. But I tell I met these guys over in Germany that are really good. They've got stellar reputations. They're sanding down cars. And I said, you're getting away with it. But I go, here's another one of my sayings. Words cannot describe the heart-sinking feeling that overcomes you when you discover you buffed through somebody else's clear coat. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, all the profit is now out the window, and now you're trying to figure out how we're going to get this thing repainted at affordable costs.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't actually ever know that my heart was not in my chest; it was right here until I did that. Because that's where you know what I'm talking about. That's that empty feeling you get when you're like, oh, I just did that, and that's so. I really appreciate people that can impress that upon us. And Jody and I were actually in Las Vegas once, and we met a really young kid. He was like 22 years old, and he said, I started doing detailing, and he goes, but quite honestly, I bought a polisher. I've never used it. I'm scared to touch it. And I'm like, we told him, I said, look, I'm not a professional detailer, but I pretend to be one on the internet. So I said, here's my advice is go get a junkyard body panel and burn through it. See how long it takes. See how much pressure it takes. See how the kind of heat you have to get. Make the mistake on something that doesn't matter so that you can learn to stay away from it. And I think that is, that's the most important thing. And also start with the least invasive solution to begin with. Start with a foam pad and some compound and see how well the paint looks after that. Don't start by going, oh, I need to sand this down.
Yeah, so on those are both good topics, but always learn and train on something that's not important to you before you learn and train on something that is important to you. And I always make the joke, buff out your girlfriend's car before your customer's black. Or your mom and dad's. But going to the salvage yard, I almost wrote an article on how to pull a panel out of the salvage yard. I've done it so often, including, be careful of snakes and spiders. Sometimes you need a chisel because pulling the hood off some cars, they're tack welded. And if you just take wrenches, it ain't coming off. There's just so many things about pulling hoods or trunk lids off cars in a salvage yard that most people don't even think about. And I've done it enough. I think I could write a pretty good how-to article on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, just training, I always tell people that if you make a mistake on somebody's car, say you burn through an edge or twist the paint, something horrible, it's not a mistake. You're leaving your signature on their car. It's actually an article you could Google. So
there you go.
I think I have over 1,000 articles on the AutoGeek forum if they haven't disappeared them yet. So it's just a matter of knowing the right search terms and add Mike Phillips, and then obviously take advantage of Skynet's ability to find things.
That's right.
That really is a legacy, though. When you think about the amount of articles that you've written, and I like the perspective of, you know what, I read books, I have all my books, but they weren't sufficient for me, right? So you went out and wrote your own book. And I think that's an important lesson for business owners because, and it relates to this training, go to as many trainings as you can, and then glean the things that fit your personality, fit your style, fit your objectives, right? Don't try to be Mike Phillips Jr. Try to be Jody Cedric in his own way, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys get trapped in this, oh, I got to do it their way. And I have a guy that he's a customer of RotoFest. He's been with us for years and years, Jamie Gonzalez. He's out of Salt Lake, and I love him because he told me when we were at Southern Detailers Conference, he said, I never, ever miss an opportunity to be trained. Yeah. Because there's always something that I pick up that I can then incorporate into my own business and my own style. And he's got really cool style, right? And it's just fun to see that. And it's refreshing to see that perspective of I'm continually learning. I'm continually investing in myself so that I can better serve my customers and leave a positive signature on their car instead of one that you're going to be paying for.
Well, so I use the term perpetual student. So I'm a perpetual student, and you have to be, because at the rate technology is being introduced. Ceramic coatings is a good example. Nanoskin towels is a good example. When Meguiar's introduced SMAS, super micro abrasive technology, things are just out of the box. So you have to be open to new technology, or you're going to miss it. And of course, then the only way to really be open to it is to be hooked up online, because that's usually where things, make the splash the first time. Perpetual student is what I would consider myself.
And I think that's kind of the key, is like Jody said, is go to everybody's training, and then you find somebody. And I think actually Richard Hutchings in the UK was talking about this morning. Find people you can mentor with, you can reach out to, that you're comfortable and that's comfortable talking to you. Because then if you have a problem, if I'm like, hey, Mike, I've got this car and it's got this waterborne paint and I'm really worried about it. What do I need to do? And, you and I could talk about that, and you'd be like, well, the clear coat's the same technology, just don't burn through, because I think a lot of times we get a little bit of ego in the way, and not like a cocky bad way, but it's like, well, I do this for a living, I don't want to ask somebody questions. Well, that's really silly. That's the only way to learn something, is to ask questions. Like you said, there's going to be new technologies that come out. There's self-healing or clear coat replacements where, you can cover scratches and all that stuff. Yeah. Ask the questions, get your hands on that stuff, try it out, see what you can do to help your business. But we got another question here. What one thing that has changed in the industry that you feel may have not been for the best?
It's something that has.
The thing about social media is, sometimes, a lot of times when I detail the car, I'll take a picture of my watch and post what time I started, and I'll take a picture when I ended, and then I'll put all the products and tools that I used on a table and make a short video or just show it. And then, show the car obviously before and after. And one of the comments I get is, how do you do this so fast? And I say, well, the first thing I do is I put my phone down. Okay.
Yeah.
And the smartphones actually just make us all dumber. It's really ironic how that works. But the technology that's come out, that I think has not been a good thing. I can't really offhand. I hate when I get stumped with a hard question.
Yeah,
That's okay.
I'll answer it for me. The first thing that popped into my head is just all of the, I'm going to call it copycat products that have come out, where it's the same bottle of stuff with somebody else's label on it, and it gets confusing because there could be 3 cutting compounds that are exactly the same chemical makeup and they're made by the same company. And I think that learning what works for you. My best example is I had a boat that I sold this spring, single stage paint on the trailer, really bad when I got it. And I was polishing it using my little PX80E 3-inch pads. And I realized that with the microfiber, it would gum up really fast on high speed. And so I had to tone it back, which is not what most people learn. They learn you got to go high speed to get that pop. And I'm like, no, when I do the high speed on that thing, it flares out the pad. I talked to Clint, I was talking to him about the pads, going, what's going on here? I had to dial back the RPMs to get the best finish on this trailer. And I think that changing and getting out of that mindset of what you've learned on the internet or what you've learned and doing what works for you. Like you said earlier, what works for that particular situation. My Chevy Silverado paint with this pad may not be what was recommended by, somebody in the industry, but that's what works. That paint's really brittle.
When I was over in Germany at this class, I had a gentleman, he says he's working on a car as a Volvo, and he says the paint is so soft, you can't do anything with it. What's the solution? And I go, well, I always think the root is to tackle the root cause. Contact Volvo, go there with the owner and say, hey, you guys show us how to work on this. and make it their responsibility. They sold you the car, and I'll bet you money they don't even have a paint technician there that can work on it, because dealerships tend to not have well-paid, well-trained staff with good products. But that would be good to the root cause. And instead of all of us trying to fix manufacturers' problems where they put a paint on the car that nobody can work on, either too hard or too soft. We always want that paint that's right in the middle. And I've always been a big, strong advocate, when someone sells a car, Ford, Dodge, Kia, whoever it is, the average person, the only thing that's left you can do to a car nowadays is wash it and wax it. Generically speaking, we don't change the oil, we don't change spark plugs, we don't swap out transmissions. All that is dealership. So at least the average person with average skills should be able to work on the paint on their cars, and that would be something right in that sweet spot, in the not too hard, not too soft. And manufacturers, how do we get that message to them? Of course, the way the world's going, they don't want us to own cars in the future.
No, they don't. And
it's all going to be self-driving.
Their facilities.
Well, they want us to live in cities where they can control us, and now there's no use to have a car. But that's the future. So a lot, that goes into some deep politics, but no one seems to ever pay attention to. But yeah, there are global elitists out there that don't want you and me or Jay Leno to own all his cars, and they don't want it to be gas, and they don't want us driving. They want us to be huddled up in an apartment in the city and just stay there and get our government check each month.
Oh, so, yeah. I remember when I was in high school, a Chevy dealer came to the school, and he was driving this brand new 80s Camaro. And he said, this is the cars of the future. You're going to drive this for 2 or 3 years and throw it away. And every time I see an 80s Camaro go down the road, I go, yep, you were wrong. You were wrong.
You're so wrong. You don't even see those cars on the road anymore unless you find someone that's really passionate about the 82 IROC.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hate those guys, but all the rest of them are gone.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's what's unique about it, is that in the automotive world, people are very... They hold on to things. They want it. And especially like you're talking in the economy we're in right now, where things are a lot uncertain. In the last 2 years, used cars have become incredibly valuable. And so to take care of them and get a professionally trained, certified detailer to make your car stay where it's at, keep that point and time where it's at today, and preserve that finish, is very valuable. I mean, you can say it's ego, you can say it's people like to make their cars look pretty, but you're preserving the value of that vehicle. Yeah, and boat, it doesn't matter if it's a boat, RV, car, whatever. Yeah. But that's really, I think, what's turned our industry around in the last 2 years, is people realizing that the value of that vehicle, if you do that. I mean, you can now post your car's got a ceramic coating and it rises the value of it about $1,000. Jody and I are going through a a series right now where we take my 2007 Chevy pickup and we're completely redoing it, and showing the cost and then showing the value before and after by taking it to a dealer and having them assess the value. It's unbelievable. I've already got the values. We haven't posted it yet, but the value
it's
difference
pretty amazing. It's
for just what
it's
we've
like,
done. I mean, just had some PDR done to it, polished the paint, a few things, and it was, I mean, a couple $1,000 worth of refinishing for the retail cost of those things, and the value of that vehicle went through the roof. So, for people out there that are not detailers, it is not just vanity. This is raising the value. Your vehicle is probably one of the second most expensive investments you have. You need to keep the value of that thing up so that when you go to get a new one, you've got the value and you can trade it in.
Yeah, whether you sell it on your own or trade it in,
Yeah.
Look, one of the things I teach in my classes is I teach wet wash detailing and cosmetic engine detailing. And, when you pop the hood on the average car is 5 years old, if no one's taking care of it, it looks pretty bad.
Yeah.
Now, if you just did a 15-minute cosmetic engine detail, use a waterless wash and maybe a vinyl rubber dressing, just spruce it up, it looks like you've been taking care of the motor. Now, it doesn't mean you have been.
Right.
The perception is, oh, this has been well taken care of.
Yeah.
We should all be honest and do the right thing, but
no, you're right.
Yeah. So what do you got coming up for trainings?
Well, and plus 3D products. Does 3D have some cool stuff? So training and
yeah. So again, not this weekend, but this coming weekend on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I have a very intense 3-day class. My class will detail on average 6 cars a day for the first 2 days. And then we jump into boat detailing, and I'm bringing in 2 boats. I always bring in boats that are huge and in horrible condition and dark gel coat. I can get a white gel coat boat in horrible condition, but see, the students won't see the before and after difference. So again, the word is impact. There's no impact.
Yeah.
Right.
But these classes all start at 7:30 and go to about 5:30. And I structured these differently than where I worked at my last gig because things were going to change. And I try to get it so the most popular topics in the detailing world are paint correction, sanding, and then boat detailing. Maybe not in that order, but people don't get excited about clean carpet. That's my point. So I brought in the topics that are the most exciting, the most fun, the most interesting. And I did that on purpose because the majority of people are flying to Florida to take this class. They're not driving down the road. So by including sanding and boat detailing with paint correction, ceramic coatings, glass polishing, engine detailing, everything under one umbrella, one weekend, you're only spending money on 1 set of airline tickets, 1 set of hotel rooms, 1 rental car, and 1 set of meals on the road to knock out all those topics in a single weekend. And I also offer IDA SV testing on the Monday following. So for me, if they want to do that, it's 1 more night of hotel, but your airline ticket won't change. You just make it for a day later. So I try to think of the logistics for that. Like I got a guy flying to my classes next weekend from Hawaii. Okay. And I appreciate that, he's got enough trust in me to fly all the way from Hawaii to Florida to take my class, especially after he said he's already taken a number of other classes. And his comment was he still didn't know how to detail a car. So I said, you come out here one time you leave, you're going to know what's up.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's awesome. Your boat class has been on my list for a lot of years to come attend. And I got it one day. I just got to bite the bullet, make the trip, and maybe Rod and I will just come out and see your cool 3D facility.
What I was going to add to that was I have enough people that are saying, well, I just want to learn boat, or I just want to learn the car. And for me, it's a lot of work to get all these cars and boats the same place the weekend for people to work on. It'd be easier to not do it. So I have been toying with the idea of not doing these 3-day classes for next year. Do a dedicated car detailing class 1 weekend, a dedicated boat detailing class another weekend. Now I'm forcing everybody to fly out there twice, another set of hotel rooms, another rental cars on the road. So I've been trying to do people a huge favor by doing all this extra work. For them.
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's really hard on me. But
I'll bet.
What I do is take care of the boss's bottom line. That's what it really comes down to, and help people. I have people that say, well, I'm not really interested in the boat class. And I said, well, a lot of the things I'm going to teach in the boat class will apply to a car and vice versa. And then I tell them this, sometimes when you buff out somebody's car, the next thing they're going to say is, hey, can you do my boat? And vice versa. If you start out boat detailing, people that own boats have expendable cash. They usually have nice vehicles, nice tow vehicles, nice luxury vehicles, exotics. So then the natural question is, hey, you did a great job on my boat. Can you do my cars? So there's this aspect of teaching both the same weekend where the third day, Sunday, when I teach the boat detailing, they're building on this foundation I've already built for them on Friday and Saturday. That's just going to add to their skill level, their knowledge level, and of course their technique ability based on hands-on. And boat detailing is a totally different animal than car detailing. And
Oh yeah.
And the sad thing is when people sign up for my class, I send them an email. It's called Important Information. And one of the things it says is, please get a good night's sleep the night before. I don't worry about you sleeping good, the rest of the time.
That's right.
You're gonna be tired. There's no sitting. There's no chairs. It's just go, 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 go. And by the time we get to Sunday, these people, they're mentally tired. They're physically tired. Some of these people have never buffed out a car, and they're using muscles and back muscles and leg muscles they've never used. They're holding a tool that to them is vibrating. And now I'm going to make them machine sand a boat, use a rotary buffer to buff out their sanding marks, use a DA polisher to polish to high gloss, and then put a ceramic coating on it. And that's a lot of work. Even if they're just doing their section of the boat, it's a big boat. And they're tired, So I put myself in their shoes, and I get it. But it's a very compressed 3 days, and it's a lot of fun. I see people make lifelong friends at these classes all the time.
Yeah.
This next class, by the way, I've got 3 police officers that are retiring for various reasons. One of the reasons is because that's a really tough profession to be in nowadays.
Oh yeah.
And they all want to start legitimate detail shops. And what they want to do is they want to flatten out that learning curve. So when they start, they know exactly what to do, whatever the car is or the boat is that comes into their shop. So, but going into 2023, my hope is that now that COVID's kind of behind us, we did a world tour this year. So went to 3 or 4 different countries teaching classes. 3D is in 57 countries. And my goal would be to go to a different country as often as possible and teach hands-on classes. I don't really want to be a part of anything that's sitting in a chair looking at the wall. But if we can, the problem you get into with hands-on classes, once I get out of my own facility, where, Flex sent me 72 tools to get that thing jump-started. That's $30,000.
Wow.
Wow.
They wired that shop to run 25 rotaries at one time without blowing a breaker.
Wow.
There's a wash bay, so we can do anything outside of the floor to humidity and heat. Air conditioned, so it's, once you leave the creature comforts of a shop that's set up like that, the first thing I do when I look at an offsite location is power. Where are all the plugins? Table space. Where am I going to put all the tools and products and pads and towels? Can't put them on the ground. And then the space itself. How many cars will the space hold? And it's hard to find those kinds of things. I remember doing roadshow classes where I go to Lowe's and rent 2 Honda 650 watt generators just to run the tools. And I packed 20 extension cords just to run all the tools that we're going to run off those generators. But my goal would be for next year is to do I love doing training. I love showing people how to work on cars and make them look beautiful. And whenever I teach my classes, I do what I call a brain dump. And every car that comes in is going to be different. So if I'm looking at a car and I go, gosh, I can show how to do this to this car, I stop the class and go, come here, watch this. And I show them how to do it right then and there. Otherwise I might forget,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That makes all the classes unique because the cars are always different. I got a 1972 Oldsmobile 442 with original gold metallic single stage paint coming in with wiper marks in the windshield. So not only did the class, and it's a vinyl top, so they're getting this one car, they're going to learn how to machine scrub and treat a vinyl top, machine polish out all the scratches in the glass, and then how to work with single stage metallic paint, which is a lot harder than just normal single stage paint.
Wow, I wish I was there this
That's
weekend.
cool. That's cool.
One of the cars we got coming for sanding is I got a 70 Dodge Demon, fresh paint, fresh custom paint, lots of orange peel, and a 1960 Cadillac Limousine Fleetwood, which is as big as they get. Both have orange peel. So just the sanding class on Saturday alone, learning how to machine sand, use a rotary polisher, use an orbital polisher. I mean, it's an experience that most of these people will never have the opportunity to do again. A lot of the cars I have come in are what I call bucket list cars,
Yeah.
Have they not worked on it? I haven't ever worked on it. You know,
Yeah,
I got a Maserati MC20 coming in. I've never worked on one of those, and probably they haven't either. And it'll be fun to do the polishing and ceramic coating on a Gullwing Maserati. You know, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Well,
so we have a bunch of questions. So you.
Oh, sure.
I know we've got a bunch of
So go
questions.
up to
that we're
Richard's
still
one. So
going,
so Richard Hutchings asked a question here that was relevant when you were talking about guys starting businesses. So what would you say is the best way to market a new business in detailing?
Definitely Instagram and Facebook. You got to be on both platforms. And I always tell people one of the key things is just always somehow catch the before. I mean, if you show a picture of a shiny Corvette and you say you fixed it, really? You know, really? Where's the before? So always capture the before in video and pictures, you know. And the other thing I think most retailers don't do is, I run into this all the time. They don't have any packages. So they try to do show car work, which to me is multiple steps. You know, so they do everything to every car, and you can't do that. I had the plumber come out to my house and install some new faucets in a remodel, and I noticed he charged me for time, labor, and materials. Okay, detailers need to do the same thing, and all these detailers I meet, they're doing what I would call a multiple step show car package, where they're fixing everything for the price of their one step package. And it all starts with educating the customer. First of all, you let the customer go, look, what's your budget? I can do whatever you want, but let's take a look at your budget, you know? And so match your services to your customer, to their budget, and, you know, the type of car. By the way, the first thing I teach in my class when I talk about starting a business is the first question to ask your customer, which is, how do you wash your car? That'll tell you everything they know about paint and taking care of their own car. And from that answer, then you can decide, you know, which package you're going to sell. Because if they say, I'm going to run through the car wash right down the road and there's the swirly brushes, you don't want to be doing your high-end package, because then when the paint's all scratched up, the coating's worn off, they're not going to blame themselves. They're going to blame you. So you just hurt your reputation. You do a one-step production detail with the cleaner wax to say, hey, if you keep this up for 6 months, come back. We'll talk about doing something else. You know, so
that's all that
that's good advice.
So another question is from Scott Mason. He just says, what about RVs? They're big in his area. And again, they're all different. You know, like you were talking earlier, RVs are usually big flat panels. They're, you know, they're fiberglass.
So I have a friend that took one of my big 3-day classes about 4 or 5 years ago. And his whole intention was to carve out an RV detailing business, which he did in Fort Lauderdale. And he specifically went after the high end, like the Prevosts and the Newmars, base coat, clear coat, high end finishes, $1 million RVs. And just a couple of years ago, he cleared $1 million detailing RVs.
Yep.
In fact, he's so successful, he hated it because he was doing all this stuff outside in full sun and humidity of Florida. Now he's got his own shop. And so now he can pull that RV in, work in air conditioning, not have to worry about the rain. And RVs, it's a niche market, as they say. It's something I've done only a few times in my life. I think you know, what happens is when you detail some guy's street rod, you know, or muscle car, and they go, oh, hey, can you do my RV? You know, you're like, well, I'll take care of my customer. This just happened. I have a guy that sends me classic Ferraris. He sent me a 1958 Ferrari 250 Testarossa. The last one recorded for sale went for $40 million, you know, so when he asked me if I can do a Sprinter van, of course the answer is yes. Do I want to detail and ceramic coat a Sprinter van? No. I'm scared of this guy.
Right.
So,
oh no, and I think that's part of it is know your market. I know that you know, Daryl Lyons was on here earlier, and I was at Big D's shop once, and a guy came in, and it's not his favorite customer, it's not a high-end customer, but he takes care of several of this guy's cars, and it was literally he's closing down. And the guys, can't you do my car real quick? And Daryl had his guys wash this guy's van because he takes care of his clients, and he wants that reputation of taking care of his clients. And that is important. I think a lot of people would have just said, hey, sorry, man, it's 5 o'clock, we're shutting down. But he's like, hey guys, can you knock this guy's van out real quick and make him happy? And that's the whole thing. Customer expectations, make your clients happy.
Leave your signature on the car as well as leaving the signature on their heart.
That's
right. You know, when I first got started in this industry, I was a trainer for McGuire's, and but my boss at the time owned an auto parts store. And at 5 o'clock, he went and locked the door and flipped this sign over, says close. And then about 5 minutes later, a guy comes up and knocks on the door. He goes over, opens the door, says, what can I help you with? Most of the people in my life would say, they'd point to the sign and say, close, come back tomorrow. He helped this guy get what he needed. He left. And he said to me, his money's just as good after 5 as it is before 5. I'm here to sell stuff. I don't make a dime when this stuff sits on the shelf. I learned so much from this guy. He also learned, you call in a shop and they say no, you don't walk to the next shop, you run to the next shop. It's just a numbers game, and so detailing motorhomes and RVs, if someone wants to carve out that market, more power to them. They're going to need, one of the things I teach people and I write about a lot is to use products that use great abrasive technology. And when you're working on a base coat, clear coat RV, 40 feet down one side, 40 feet down the other side, then you got the front cap and the back cap, you don't want to do this twice. So make sure you do your research and find a company that makes really good products that is based on good abrasive technology. And I know it's the year 2022, we're getting close to 2023, and a lot of people don't understand this. How can there be junk on the market? There is junk on the market. And I'll tell you, that's one of the reasons I was attracted to 3D is they make their own abrasive technology from the raw materials. Most of the companies got to go to companies like Faro and Saint-Gobain and buy powders to make their stuff, which means everybody's using the same stuff. Tunç Goran, the owner of 3D and also the head chemist, invented his own processing of how to take the raw material and make his own powder, because he said one day, if I buy my stuff from the same place everybody's buying their stuff, I'll never be better. And most people know he is a paint polisher, not a carpet cleaner. So yeah, I want to use stuff that I can count on no matter what paint is, soft, hard, ceramic, whatever it is. I got to have something I can trust for my own work and to teach people how to use so they can be successful. And years ago, I want to share something with you. I wrote this article, and it says the most important factor when it comes to polishing paint is the abrasive technology. And then right below that statement, there's a picture of my buddy. He's buffing on a Thunderbird. It's a 1969 Ford Thunderbird. But what you see is compound spread out over the trunk lid. You see a pad on top of it. You see a tool, then you see him holding it. And then I say, when you look at this picture, what's touching the paint? The abrasive technology. And it's what's going to work the magic. Then behind that is the pad, then the tool, and then the guy. And I meet so many detailers that are like, I am so good. Really? You're not touching the paint, So yeah, but kind of back to the RV world, get into that. Make sure you got good abrasive technology that'll work good in outdoors, indoors, but you definitely don't want to be buffing out a 40-foot motorhome twice.
Definitely
no, it's
not.
the same thing as a boat. I'd put it right next to boats. There's a lot of work. I mean, detailing a boat from stern to bow, trailer, spare tire, the whole 9 yards, and they're in bad environments. This thing gets dunked in the water all the time. So you gotta. It's a different animal. It's not the same.
Yeah,
I consider it a young man's niche.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that is true. That's true.
I had a guy contact me yesterday about boat detailing. He wanted to work with me to go after the boat market. And I'm going, look, I sent him this morning. The only boat I ever liked to detail was my race boat. And that's because it was a Sanger flat bottom drag boat. It had a big flat bow, kind of had some sides with some MROM strikes and a scoop on the carburetors. Pretty quick, pretty simple, little dressing on the vinyl seats, polished the aluminum. It was fun, it was fast, it was easy. Every other boat I've worked on has been long and hard hours, really in bad shape, and so many different components. So I don't mind teaching people how to do it, but I really don't want to do it myself.
I think there's an overwhelming trend in the conversation today. Fun, fast, and easy.
That's right. That's right.
Oh yeah. And I'm not scared to say that. Some people say, Mike, we notice you work on a lot of old cars. So then they extrapolate that out to think I only like old cars. That's not true. I like a lot of really new cars, but when it comes to old cars, there's no plastic trim. If there's trim, it's nickel, chrome, stainless, or aluminum. You don't tape it off. You run the buffer over it. The panels are big and flat. Look at a 69 Chevelle. It's like I like to pick on that car. Versus, when I first buffed out my first C7, I made a Facebook video that day and said, hey, if you're going to buff these cars out, make sure you're charging lots of money because there's not a single flat panel on that car. Right. It's all planes. It's you have curves this way, then this way, then this way, and then you can't run a buffer in a crosshatch pattern. It just doesn't work. So now you're buffing the direction of the length of the panel, and it's just tedious, you know.
Yep. Yep. That's Oh yeah. That's my
Oh,
911. Every single curve, it's all curved. Both
all
two
curved.
It's two-way compound curves, and you're just rolling. I feel like I'm rolling as I Oh
Feel
yeah.
like you're driving in Kentucky.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a C8R special edition coming in for the class next weekend, and I'm going to be able to teach these people. This is what it's like to buff out a C8 or a C7 Corvette. It's just nothing but planes. It's such a pain in the butt to buff out one of those cars.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Hard.
Well,
Gotta
man.
try.
Well, we want to thank you for taking the time. I mean, obviously we went 30 minutes longer than I planned, but it's always such a great conversation with you. So how do people connect with you, your training with 3D products?
You know, all my social media is Mike Phillips 3D. You know, don't tag or like the Mike Phillips Auto Geek. That's dead. It's in the rearview mirror long ago. So look for Mike Phillips 3D. I brought up a brand new discussion forum called 3D Detail Talk. I'm mostly active on Instagram and Facebook, but I write a lot of meaty articles, and neither one of those platforms will hold that kind of content. For example, I just finished doing a complete dry sand cut and buff on a 1969 GTO, and I send the link out because there's pictures from start to finish. There's every product, every tool, the sanding disc, everything I needed to do this car is there. And there's no place on the internet you can find all that information in one place. And Instagram and Facebook are going to hold that volume of information.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. We're on our phones. They're easy for me. They're easy for everybody to post to. But for meaty content, I had to bring up an actual discussion forum for the 3D company to post this stuff. That car, by the way, was a 9-year build. It was built by Jeremy Miranda. Miranda built cars. The following weekend, he took it to an Ohio Good Guy show and took first place with it. So, not saying I did a good job, but the stuff I used got it right the second time. So it looked good.
Awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. So everybody, please go out to Mike's forums, Mike Phillips 3D, 3dproducts.com.
Oh, yeah.
Get on the trainings. If you can get to the trainings, please do it. They're well worth it. And also things like this, you know, like and subscribe our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel. We can go out there. Yeah, congratulations on getting to work with Clint Hintz. He's a good guy. So go out and do that stuff. Get out and see people, do stuff, go to trainings, learn more,
learn stuff,
practice, go out. Yeah, just go do it. Get off the internet and go do it.
Fun, fast, and easy, baby.
Yeah, Clint is a great guy. He's going to be assisting me with this upcoming 3-day class. I'm so glad he's going to be there to lend a helping hand. Managing, I got over 20 people in this class, 12 cars and 2 boats. And I could do it by myself, but I'd rather have someone that is also very qualified at working with people hands-on to give me a hand with that. So Chris
awesome.
will be there also. Yeah, so yeah, anytime you guys you guys ever want to come to one of my classes, you just give me a call. We'll work something out. I'd love to have you there so you could do a little sharing of what one of my classes are.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We
love
will
it.
look at the calendar and get that into place.
We'll do it a live thing.
I'm working on a schedule for 2023 as we talk, and hopefully it'll be published, before SEMA, because we need to share these days while we're at SEMA. And I hope to see you guys at SEMA too.
Oh,
yep,
yeah,
we'll do it.
So, well, thank you
Awesome.
so much
Thanks
for joining us. Guys, please remember, like, share, subscribe, connect with Mike Phillips, and we will check you same time, same bad channel, just
next week.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks, brother. You have a great day.
Bye now.